Number 36. 36, Amazing Grace. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. Now open your Bibles to Matthew chapter 24. Matthew chapter 24. This is a passage that causes maybe a lot of confusion in the world, principally because they don't understand the subject matter that Jesus is talking about here, and perhaps also because a lot of people understanding the book of Revelation to be a futuristic, literal interpretation or document to be interpreted literally for the future sometime. But in Matthew chapter 24, beginning at verse 15, Jesus is explaining to his followers how they can know when the time is near and what to do when the Roman armies surround Jerusalem and are about to destroy that city. It's certainly symbolic of God's patience wearing thin with Israel. It's kind of a once and for all statement that it's not what matters is circumcision in the flesh, but of the heart, that God's kingdom, God's spiritual true Israel is not just Jewish faithful Christians, but Gentiles as well. And so he says in verse 15, Jesus says, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel standing in the holy place, and then in parentheses he says, let the reader understand. Verse 16, then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let the one who is on the housetop not go down to take what is in his house, and let the one who is in the field not turn back to take his cloak. In other words, get out of Dodge fast. Don't, when you see the Roman armies coming around Jerusalem, take off. Don't wait. Verse 18, and he says, and let the one who is in the field not turn back to take his cloak. Verse 19, and alas for women who are pregnant, and for those who are nursing infant in those days, because it would be difficult for them to travel. It would be physically difficult. Verse 20, he says, pray that your flight may not be in winter or on a Sabbath. Those are situations that would complicate their escape from Jerusalem. Verse 21, for then there will be great tribulation, such as not been from the beginning of the world until now, no, and never will be. Obviously, somewhat of apocalyptic literature being spoken of, this great tribulation, but Jesus is warning his faithful followers that there are signs and what to do when they see Jerusalem about to be destroyed. Now, beginning in verse 36, he transfers his subject matter from the destruction of Jerusalem to the destruction of the world. And opposite to the destruction of Jerusalem, where we can know there are signs, there is time to escape. And he said to pray that it won't be in winter, or we're feeling sorry for women with little children. But now, beginning in verse 36, there are no signs. Winter, summer, it doesn't matter whether you're pregnant or not, because it's the end of all times. It's when the king is coming back, and the parables that he talks about following the description of the last day when no one knows when that will be, not even the Son while he's on earth. He gives several parables about how we need to be ready. And in chapter 25, he begins talking about the final judgment. Well, the reality is, men have been trying for centuries to figure out when it is that Jesus is coming back, and they'll misinterpret some Bible passages and create some fantastic theories, and it really serves to distract Christians from their real mission, to go out and teach, seek and save the lost, and preach the gospel, and live every day as if it were our last. Turn over with me now to James chapter 4. Corey, with the kids sing tonight, they talked a little bit about this. The last part of chapter 4, beginning at verse 13, James writes, and he says, "Come now, you who say today or tomorrow, we will go into such and such a town and spend a year there and trade and make a profit." Verse 14, "Yet you do not know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? For you are a mist that appears for a little time and then vanishes." In verse 15, "Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will live and do this or that. As it is, you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil." Verse 17, "So, whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, for him it is sin." So, as Christians, we don't really have to worry when is the last day, when Jesus comes back, because we need to be ready every day. Live our life as if it were our last. 2 weeks ago, there was I don't know if you saw this in the news, 35 miles from my son's house in Belo Horizonte, Brazil, this dam that was created by Brazil's largest mining company to hold the sludge that's washed out from these mines. The dam broke, and that sludge traveled over 5 miles and killed over 300 people. The people disappeared just basically from 1 minute to the next. Nobody expected it. It just happened all of a sudden, and we're all shocked by that. But in reality, if we even live a long time on this life, it's still like a mist. It's like a vapor. It's very quick. And so I want to encourage you to be ready for the coming of Jesus. It might be before we get home tonight, or it may be years and years to come. It doesn't matter, because as Christians, we're ready. But if you're not a Christian, we want to invite you to come as we stand and sing and give your heart and your life to Jesus, be united with Him through baptism. Or if you are a Christian but you need the prayers of the church, we also invite you to come now as together we stand and sing.